نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم ما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So today inshallah ta'ala we carry on with our series after Fajr, which has been focusing particularly on Surah Rahman. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, yani those ni'mats, those favors, those gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and He mentions to us. And obviously for those of us who study Arabic will know that the tathniya is used, the dual is used, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing both humans and jinn. And therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding and impounding that in order to encourage us and to somewhat shake us into trying to reflect over the favors Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, so that at least we can be grateful for that. Yesterday I spoke about the brain, about the function of the brain, and how it is a remarkable creation. I did not touch upon the fact that all your thoughts take place within your brain, where that goes, how that goes. When you have a piece of, if you've seen a brain, looks like a walnut, we said 1.5 kilos, something really small, so big. And where do the thoughts go? How does the physical aspect of the brain and something which is thoughts, which is not something you can, it's abstract, you can't hold a thought, okay? Then when we have dreams, when we have imagination, when we learn to reason logically, all these things are within that brain. Today, someone tried to work out what it was. Today we speak about the heart. Okay, the heart. Without the brain and the heart, we don't exist. When we're looking at things like organ transplantation, one of the things we look at is how do you determine death. For those who permit organ transplantation, they have to determine when does death take place. Is it when the heart is no longer beating? Is that when death takes place? Or is it what they term as brainstem death or brain death? Because we know that life is associated with one of these two things. Without the brain, the body doesn't function. Without the heart, the body doesn't function. And again, I have numerous facts here which I will share with you. In reality, the heart is something very simple, but also very incredible. It's a pump, okay? Its main job is to pump something all around the body. And that is to pump blood all the way around the body. That's all it does. Going on like this all day long. Now, how many cells does this pump make sure that blood reaches? 75 trillion cells. His heart pumps continuously to make sure the nutrients, the food that you consume, makes its way to the stomach, through the stomach lining, through osmosis, gets into the bloodstream. The oxygen that you breathe through your lungs makes its way into the bloodstream, and the heart makes sure that this thing gets fed more than anything else, and then the rest of your body gets fed. You tie off your finger, I wouldn't advise this, you tie off your finger and you'll see that your finger will start to die. And eventually it will fall off because you cut off the blood supply to your finger. This thing pumps all day long. 300 grams it weighs. What's 300 grams? And it's the size of a fist. Average heartbeat, 60 to 100 times a minute, depending on what you're doing. 60 to 100 times in a minute. That's 4,800 times an hour. That's 100 times a day. That's 42 million times a year. That's 3 billion times in your lifetime. Pumping away. Aren't we supposed to be doing shukr Allah for each pump? How many is that? 3 billion times? How many of us can sit here and say that we do subhanallah or alhamdulillah or anything of that nature, because that's how you thank Allah, 3 billion times. So we have approximately, even though there's about 10, 11 pints of blood in the human body, around 280 liters of blood is pumped through the body every hour. 7,200 liters in 24 hours. 2 million liters a year. Those of us who are engineering specialists here, is there a pump that can pump 2 million liters per year? And then for 30, 40, 50 years, assuming we look after it. Obviously, if we don't look after this and we put all sorts of junk in here, then we're going to start getting blocked arteries. We're going to start getting the heart not functioning properly. The chambers, I won't go into that. That seems a little bit too complicated to explain. The heart has its own electrical supply. Okay, so it's electricity which goes through the heart, which makes the muscles contract. That's why you get a defibrillator, which is that thing that they place on in order to stop the heart when it's stuck in that kind of motion. So everybody thinks that this actually starts the heart, but this actually stops the heart. Okay, because the heart is stuck in this position. So even if you were to take the heart out of the body, as long as there's oxygen supply to the heart will just keep pumping. It won't stop. And what the ECG machine does, those of us who have had the experience of that, that is measuring the electricity which is going through your heart. But this is the physical aspects of the heart. All our feelings are in our heart. There's a big debate amongst the ulama as to where is the seat of the soul. Is the seat of the soul in the brain, or is the seat of the soul in the heart? There's more inclination that it's in the heart. Hence you see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions this mudgha, idha saluhat, that when this mudgha, this piece of flesh is sound, then the whole body is sound. And if this piece of flesh is corrupt, then the whole body is corrupt. So this heart, this is the place of our beliefs. This is the place of love. This is the place where they mention the ulama of Islah, where the dhawq comes from. Yani, this thing can reason, this thing can understand things when you explain things in logic. But when you say, imagine you trying to explain to an alien the feelings you have towards your mother. How do you explain that to an alien? That the love you have for your mother. How do you explain the love that you have for a child? How do you explain that to someone? They say, don't they, that the romantics say that unless you taste love, you cannot explain love. Okay, once you've tasted love, then you can explain it. That's why those who are majnoon in the love of Allah, and we try to get them to explain to us, we can never understand what they're saying because we've not tasted that love. They've tasted that love. This is why when the companions, radiallahu anhu ajma'in, used to look at the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they made statements like, I looked at the moon, I looked at the Prophet, I looked at the moon, I looked at the Prophet, and I knew straight away that the Prophet was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And we think, how can, what does this mean? Because unless we've tasted that love, unless we've experienced that, then it's very hard for us to rationalize it. That's why the place of the love in the heart is very different from the akal in the brain. So this piece in there, if I was to say to you now, you're going to go to sleep, just make sure you keep your heart beating all night. How are you going to do that? Shouldn't we be scared going to sleep at night? That what if our hearts just stop beating at night? Shouldn't we be scared? That this thing inside is just pumping away? That no one's, who's got control over this? So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the control over this, if He's keeping us alive, then what do we owe to that Rabb? You know, how many of his favors are we denying? How many of his ni'mats are we denying on a daily basis, in the split second that we're all sat here right now? Hence, even if we were in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, since the day we squealed when we were born, till the day we squeal when we pass away, even then we will not have fulfilled the favors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his mercy allows us to live in this world. He does not say worship me 24 hours a day. He does not say worship me 7 days a week. He says live in this world. Marry, have children, have a job, earn a living, have fun with your friends, laugh, relax, take your family somewhere, but don't forget me. What I have made compulsory upon you, fulfill that. And then what you want to give yourself, the extra time you want to spend, that is obviously from each one of us. So another favor, another ni'mat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is true, in case you're asking, that kind of person died from a broken heart. Yes, because our feelings and our emotions also impact on the heart. How we feel. Hence, when we are in a state of positivity, when we are in a state of happiness, when we are constantly shukr, we're happy that what Allah has given us, we're always looking at the glass half full, not looking at the glass half empty. Or as the saying goes, being happy that at least we have a glass. Forget whether it's half full or half empty, I've actually got a glass. Then that has this positive impact on us. But when we start looking at the world negatively, and we start getting depressed around the world on us, then that has an impact on us. That's why whenever you saw the Prophet of Allah, why was he always smiling? Why was he always smiling? Because when you look at it from a worldly perspective, he lost his father before he even saw him. He lost his mother as a young boy. He lost his grandfather as a young boy. He buried his own children, his own sons, with his own hands. He was involved in the burial of his other grandsons and his daughters. He had to take back 2 of his daughters that were divorced. Which man could live with that? And yet, every day, whenever he would meet someone, he would have a smile on his face, no care in the world. That contentment. And always being shukr. Even just before Badr, when he's in the tent, he always used to look at his own inadequacies. When he would make dua that I am not capable for this task you've given me, Ya Allah. This was his nature. So the heart is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed every one of us. Even then we abuse it, unfortunately. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us how to look after the body. He's told us what to do, what not to do. And unfortunately we don't listen, and then we get impacted by these things. But if this is not one thing that we should express gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala literally on a daily basis. Ask those people who have serious heart conditions. Ask those people who unfortunately suffer from heart attacks. Ask those people who are in that as to what the value of this heart is. And then we will recognize. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq to have the full understanding of the ni'mat which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum.